Hi there, and welcome to episode 1 of our Let's Play of Panzer Campaign's Market Garden. As voted by you guys, we're playing the historical grand campaign for this particular game. And with that said, we'll be going down the 92-turn slog, following all the major historical actions. And, well, we'll see whether or not we can beat the record for taking Arnhem. I believe it's a 64-mile slog up through Belgium into Holland, into Arnhem proper, and taken along the way we'll go from Nijmegen into Arnhem, from Eindhoven into the canal area over here into, well, Nijmegen, and through there. So this is it's a little bit about the history behind it. Firstly, it is September 1944. D-Day has come about, and the Allies have made considerable progress all the way to the Belgian border and two places all along just the edge of France here. So at this time, I mean, supplies were kind of getting a bit thin, and of course they kind of wanted to end the war quickly. So they had this idea of kind of going around the German front lines, and because the Germans at this point they were fighting a defensive war for sure. They were trying to occupy the river crossing and places that were just generally hard to deal with. So the idea was to go around the Siegfried line, around all of the German defenders, and the idea being that if they could go around it and to go through, say for example, parts of Holland here, they'd be able to strike right at the center of German manufacturing, effectively crippling them there. And as an added bonus, because I mean we're kind of cutting through the middle of the enemy lines, this also had the bonus of entrapping one army in Holland. So this was a multi-stage campaign. Firstly, they dropped the 101st Airborne over here by the canals. They had the objectives of capturing the canals, and unfortunately I can't bring up the names of the towns as we go along here, but they had the objectives of capturing canals, and also the first stage, where, you know, blip on the map if you will, which would be Eindhoven. Moving forwards, the 82nd Airborne Division had the objective of capturing the second major blip on the map. Yeah, there's a lot of paratroopers in the scenario, and it simulates the fact that they each had determined kind of drop zones. Some of them came in exactly where they were supposed to. Some of them are quite messy, as we see here, and these are simulated on a game-to-game basis, so they're all different each time. Anyhow, 82nd Division, they had the objective of capturing Grosbeek Heights over here and holding the bridges at Nijmegen over here. So yeah, they had the goal of doing that, and the fate of the entirety of the operation really relies on all of these paratroopers, all of the paratroopers in themselves. But what is especially important is the prize here, which would be Arnhem, manned by the 1st British Airborne Division coming in over here. So we have just witnessed the first day of drops. There will be 3 more shuttles of Air Forces, if I remember correctly. So currently it is the 17th. On the 18th, there will be another drop at 2 p.m. Following that, there will be kind of minor groups of troops moving in as well. And this was to simulate the fact that they had some weather problems. After the first kind of troop went in, I believe fog rolled into the drop zones, so they weren't able to conduct them any better. And another thing is that this was a daylight drop for the Allies. For parts of, say for example, D-Day and all that, as we know, they did nighttime drops, which from the most part didn't sound that bad, but in reality, I mean, some people were about 12 kilometers away from their drop zones, and overall it was quite amazing what they did with the resources that they made up with. Whereas in this battle, most of the paratroopers made it spot on the mark, where, you know, 2 to 3 kilometers, which isn't too bad. So now we have the campaign in all its glory to mess around with, now that the first drops are down. So I figured we'd go from top to bottom through the map, and we'll see what we can do here. So a few things about the game. Firstly, it is immensely helpful if you know the NATO symbology here for the different types of units. I can probably bring it up here on a second screen just for now. You know what, actually it's not that great even on a website. So for now we could try to do something like this, maybe. So these are unit symbols. I can't keep it on the screen in any better format. So for example, we have HQs, we have infantry, we have heavy weapons, but largely, more or less, we'll see artillery, armor, infantry is the primary things there. So what do we have to do? Well, the game is based off of two things. It's about securing objectives, and it is about causing casualties. Objectives are marked by these if you will, stickers on the map, for lack of a better term, with values inside them. The biggest one inside this particular campaign is Arnhem, worth a whopping 1,500 points. Everything else is subtracted or very, very low in comparison to that. So holding Arnhem Bridge is the prize here. Again, going top to bottom, we'll start off with the British 1st Airborne Troop over here. These guys are very, very, very experienced troops for the most part. You know, I haven't done too much reading about them, but they have a value of morale A, and how the game does, or what the side panel here really says, is at what capacity are your forces at what movement capability are they at, so you know they have a limited amount of moves per turn, what morale and fatigue they are at. And morale here is it's a general term. It's not necessarily how well spirited your men are at the moment. It is actually a blend of, say for example, how well experienced they are relative to everything else, and how fatigued they are. It's an odd system, but it works pretty well, and it makes the game a lot simpler than what it needs to be. So, or what it would otherwise be, I should say. So far so good with the with the air landing brigades over here. Our forces have made it down without any major disruption, and disruption is one of the critical things inside the game. It's currently I have it so that the game highlights all units with disruption, such as the first wing over here. Your units can get disrupted in a couple of ways, but the main thing is combat, and through in this case paratrooper landings. So with that said, it'll be a couple of turns before our paratroopers can be fully mobilized. But the general route here was that as soon as the paratroopers came down, what we will do is we will get some of the paratroopers to start moving around, and we will try to scout the way into Arnhem properly. Historically, what they did was that they grabbed the 1st Airborne Reconnaissance Division over here, about 200 men, and they just raced them towards Arnhem Bridge, hoping that they could get into that tile, get into that area, and kind of secure it, so then the slower moving infantry could kind of move forwards from there, because they didn't carry a lot of vehicles for these airdrops, of course. So to kind of go along with that route, we will be doing something very similar over here. I am going to get the vast majority of airborne troops to make a few moves around first, more or less for the purposes of knowing where exactly the enemy forces are, at least approximately, so that I can get a good idea of how I should move them. Right, so as you may have noticed, I can combine our forces into larger or smaller chunks if needed. That'll be kind of a thing that I use a lot. So it looks like the way is clear, at least to the best of our, telling ability over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 1st Recon Squadron. I'm going to put them into movement mode, and movement mode is indicated by that little white bar at the bottom of the screen. And what this means is that your units inside the game, they don't actually use the roads and railroads, as you may have noticed, scattered around the map, unless they are in movement mode. And it's actually pretty critical, because they will not use bridges unless you explicitly tell them to. So the idea being that the formation for movement and the formation for example, driving around and the movements for fighting and driving around are different. So with that said, we'll see how. So with that said, they'll take more damage if they're in movement versus that, but on the other hand, they'll be able to move farther. So we encountered some German troops right now. There's a fog of war system inside the game, so as you can see, we can't really tell where the enemies are unless we move right next to them for now. And with that said, that'll be all the movements we conduct there. Over here, again, I have disrupted troops highlighted on my map right now. I see that a lot of our forces in the 82nd over here are disrupted, with the exception of the engineers. So you know what? I'll get the engineers to try to go for some of these victory points, and we will leave it at that, and I'll try to get these forces to disengage next turn. Moving down to the 101st Airborne, they seem to be largely fine. I'm going to get them to combine. The forces up here, they have one objective, which is the town of Vega over there, and securing the bridges around the Velms Canal. The forces down here, they have the goal of securing the Song Bridge, and possibly the one at Best as well. They are also pretty disrupted, so you know what, I am not going to issue them any moves for the starting turn. Right, so that leads us to the most critical portion. This is the, I don't remember what the force name here is. Evidently this is the 21st Army Group, but I believe it's, yeah, so 30th Corps over here. 30th Corps is, and you may have noticed all of my units have different backgrounds, and this is pretty important because while they're on the same side, they have a system of command and control for themselves. So anyhow, the idea being 30th Corps here needs to go the 60th miles to the site, and they had originally planned to do that in 2 or so days, which is a timetable that they would not be able to keep, and we would definitely not be able to keep. So we hope to be, so it's a trade-off. We need to go fast down this route, and at the same time we have to defend it every step of the way, and we have to clear it and of course we had to consider the fact that none of our forces can be absolutely exhausted as we get there. So before we get down into the assault, we should probably prep the enemy lines or whatever we can see here with an artillery barrage and to go forwards from there. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up some reconnaissance troops just right over there. So if I highlight what tiles they can see, visible hexes, this reconnaissance troop should hopefully give us some spotting information at the start of the next turn, so that we can get an idea of where their forces are at. So, a couple of things on the map. These are the broken, where there's a few tiles, and this is the isometric map, by the way. There's a few tiles over here with these little red splotches, and that's indicating that there's a bridge here, but the bridge has been blown. Bridges are incredibly important inside this scenario. The main thing, or the main reason why we are actually dropping paratroopers, is to take those bridges. The bad thing is that those bridges have a chance to be blown by the Germans as we reach them, and that's just kind of a roll of the dice, is how the game simulates it. So we'll see what comes up. Right, but going along with the show here, we have a whole bunch of artillery pieces. We can open up an artillery dialogue, and we can get away at firing, artillery rounds at the German lines over here. And we also have a wide variety of planes in support. So there's a few different rule sets for this game. I've elected to play with one over the other. What we're seeing here is artillery coming down along the front, and technically how the original, the vanilla game rules play out is that technically your artillery should be able to shoot more than once per turn, and you should also be able to target your opponents specifically. So if there are 2 units inside a tile, oddly enough, you get the choice between which one do you want to hit. To me, that sounds a little weird, and it makes managing your artillery pieces a lot worse, in my opinion. So with that said, we've gone with the alternative route, which is your artillery guns can fire only once. They hit everything inside the tile, and on the plus side, they do more damage like that. But you don't get to choose which one. So along the front, technically the information we have is kind of, the closer we get to them, we get to know what type of unit they have and roughly how many men they have. So 2 digit places, so we can probably guess this is under 99 men, and likewise that kind of continues down along the line here. So that's one thing. We've already seen the artillery barrage go down. As you may have noticed, we're starting to disrupt enemy forces, and this disruption means that this will be a lot easier to clear them by assaulting in the future. So one of the things is that for this scenario, a lot of the Wehrmacht forces, lower quality forces, will be in this kind of light bluish color. The SS, which so happen to be resting inside the area, will be inside the black tiles over, such as here. This will pose quite a threat. It is a section of tank destroyers, really well armored tank destroyers. So now that the artillery has gone in, I'm going to get our forces to make a few plays forwards. with tanks and infantry and all that. Starting off with the side units, I want these people to advance as far as they can, make contact with the enemy front line, and I want to see exactly what is over there. Let's just grab everything and move it through here. So we made contact. We still don't have too much information, but we know more so, say for example, what battalion they are under. And what I want our forces to do here is I want them to start trading fire and to start dishing out damage. So overall, the objective is to break the enemy and then to kind of make an assault. Right now, I'm going to take out the reconnaissance units out of the road network, because one of the things that the game does indeed simulate is how congested the road is, and with that said, it impacts movement of the other forces. Currently, I want this assault to go straight down the line and into these areas, and I have the map on fun mode when you zoom down to the lowest level, so you get to see, you know, little counters and stuff like that instead of the NATO symbology, if that helps people visualize things. Right, so lots of defenders. They've got 80 guns set up here inside the back and a lot of infantry in the front. I am going to call in some of our air forces to hit these troops and to try to get rid of them. So this looks like a very confusing screen. We have reconnaissance units which fly by, tell us approximately how strong they are, but we also have bomber and fighter wings. Technically they serve the same purpose. They're more or less there to do damage. So starting off, what I can do here is that every turn you have, I think, a 20% chance to get these units back. And with that said, we will try to really press with the air forces here. There's a lot of information. It approximately tells us how many planes we are attacking with at one go. Their strength values over here. So for example, 4 points of, I believe, soft damage, 17 points of hard damage. The rest I think is air defense, because the game does indeed do air combat as well. Currently, we just need something to pummel. You know what? Let's get some Spitfires to pummel some more infantry. So we can ship this off. Again, you can. The game allows you to specify which unit to target, which to me sounds really, really weird. But we can drop them like that. Enemy AA forces will fire back. And then what the game does is that it first simulates the strafing runs and then the bombing runs. As it turns out, the bombing runs obviously kind of do more damage. So strafing does exactly 0 points of damage. Bombing does 25 men, and it disrupts the entirety of their front lines. Very, very good. So we're going to continue down here. I'm going to use Mustangs to try to take out their anti-air. See how that goes. And voila, it destroys them. Perfect. And we're going to move down along the line here as best as we can, or as best as we can target forces. Evidently, we're kind of out of our reach over there, so we'll switch. And here we'll send in the fighter Typhoons, which are especially deadly. Or actually, you know what? We'll send in the Mosquitoes. They're even more deadlier against tanks with a value of 41. And we'll see whether or not we can strike them for any serious points of damage. 2 vehicles, not bad. There's a maximum amount of times you can send aircraft into a single tile. So I believe that is 3, if not 2. So yeah, it looks like it is 2. Never mind. So in that case, we can just kind of bank off of that, and then we can get down to the main assault. What I want to do with our forces is that the units in this kind of reddish color, these will push along the sides of the map to keep the route open. The forces with the blue backgrounds, the armored guards division, which is over here, will drive up against the road, and I plan to use them to take us all the way to Eindhoven to link up with the paratroopers before we rotate into any of the other forces, at least for now. So we'll have to push these people really, really hard. But you know what? The good thing being that I really want to just kind of trade space for time here and to get this movement going. So we'll bring up the tanks. These forces are already disrupted. We have to put fire down on them. Unfortunately, they have this zone of control thing going on. So voila, the engagements on the front line here are starting to move forwards. Right, and again, try to put some pressure on them. One of the things that the game does is, as you may have noticed, the terrain here, it features a lot of these kind of crisscrossy tiles. They're considered broken terrain inside the game's methodology, I guess. What that aims to, or what that means to say is that, okay, the land here is not that great for movement, and I mean, for most of the games, they use the broken tiles to simulate the fact that the land is more or less mountaintops and, like, you know, sides of mountains, really. But for the sake of this title, it means that the terrain is just so much irrigated fields and stuff like that. I believe, at least, that movement is really, really difficult. So what we want to do here is, some of these troops aren't released to us at the start of the game, so that's kind of why they're fixed. I want to grab whatever we can of the Guards Corps, and I want to push them as far as we can up alongst here. So that looks like that will be the end of the first turn, because we have nothing else to move. If I switch on the filter for fixed units, the rest of it, excluding a few artillery pieces, are fixed, so we will not do anything there. So we'll ship this to the AI. We'll name this LP1 for now, and we will let the game go forwards. Right, so the game will try to resolve the enemy movement. They'll do their thing. The combat goes really, really fast on the enemy turns, but this is a good thing, because at one point it just gets excessive if you put it onto one of the slower AI settings. So there we go. Turn is finished, air units are available, following units are isolated, aka they are out of supplies. A lot of units which were disrupted, 39 out of the 55, have regrouped and reorganized. Most likely that is the large portion of paratroopers, so all well and good. We will, I was gonna say we'll try to get the convoy of reconnaissance units farther down along the road, but it looks like that's as far as they are going to go for Arnhem Bridge. So we'll leave it at that. In the meantime, our aerial paratroopers will try to brawl it out with whatever we've met on the front here. What we'll try to do here is that instead of fighting them directly head on, I need to get my forces mobilized and moving into the direction of Arnhem, and we'll try to use the roads as best we can. You know, I honestly don't care about casualties this early on inside the fight, because we just need to get our forces moving. How I look at it is that, you know, if we don't take Arnhem Bridgehead and we have to fight for it, the casualties will be infinitely worse, just no matter what. Paratroopers are really, really good soldiers. Hopefully they can do some more damage than that, but in the meantime, it doesn't look like they can. See whether or not we can do some more. And FYI, on the sidebar here, you may have noticed the color of the text changes. Typically what this means is that green means you have more than 2/3 of your movement points left. You can do three rounds of shooting before before the thing turns red, and when it is red, it means that you have no movement points left for firing. So when men are disrupted, we can make an assault. Assaults typically shift the enemy out of the terrain, which is really good for us. And we will try to move our forces forwards even more with everything they can bring. Right, so that solves Arnhem. I would prefer it if we could move faster in that section, but you know what? That is too much. Here's the plan for Nijmegen over here. So the 82nd is made out of 2 units. It's made out of the 508th and the 505th. So my idea is to get the 508 here to set up a defensive perimeter around Krakenberg and into Germany. This is because the Germans will start to bring in forces to try to mobilize against us very, very soon. I am going to get our forces. Hey, would you look at that? We caught the Germans unawares over here in travel mode, so we should be able to do quite a bit of damage to them early on. Took out right around 30 of their men. At the most, they could have had 99 to start off with, so 1/3 of their strength. Not bad at all. And we will just get them to continue like that. The rest of the forces, we will just get them to continue moving around. So the nice thing is that if I zoom in here, you see that this Gralspeak Heights location is truly quite a bit of a hill, which makes it a nice spotting location and a nice defensive location as well. Currently I'm toggling on the settings for seeing the command structure. So these 3 units are part of the same battalion, as it happens to be. Well, you know, as you've seen, I can split up units, so that kind of is yeah, just that. Right, over here, this HQ will take whatever forces it has. I will try to link them up with each other as best as they can for now. And I will get them to drive towards the bridge and to also drive towards the sides over here. So this unit over here, the 504th, is also part of the 82nd. I lied about that. The bad thing is that they've dropped into an area where they do not have any supplies, whereas over here I believe we're supplied by one of these tiles to indicate the fact that, I mean, paratroopers for this mission got their supplies largely by air. And would you look at that? So yeah, like I said, we have a chance to trigger the explosives on the bridge as we kind of capture those areas. The first one's already gone off, which is, you know, nothing we can do about that. Hopefully luck goes into our favor, but we'll see. For now, I want our people to lock down the bridges as best as they can again, and to kind of stack up alongst the heights over here. So I'm not going to touch the isolated troops. We will leave them as is for now. I could order them to dig in until they receive supplies, but you know what? It's not worth the effort, in my opinion. Over here, we need to take the Welms Canal, so I'm getting our forces to mobilize to hopefully get across those bridges, a lockdown, and to take out the security detachment over there. In the meantime, we'll try to set up a defense in Stingeldale over there with those units. 502nd will do two things. They will try to take the Brest and Son bridge, and they'll also try to secure the towns along the way, whereas in the meantime, the other force, which should be... where is their HQ? Where is their HQ? Right over here. The 505th will try to move towards Eindhoven. So let's get those movements going. Or one of the things I should mention is the 101st Airborne Reconnaissance, which have jeeps. They will try to move, and they will try to set up a reconnaissance post at either Beek or Lieshout over here to get an idea of whether or not the Germans are mobilizing against us, and more importantly, from where they're trying to do that. Right, so same plan. Try to move over here, attack, disrupt, assault, and finish things off like that. So as you might imagine, I mean, a lot of the strategy from the game comes from not, say, how you set up your combat, but the grand scheme that you're trying to accomplish with your forces. So let's see. I'm going to get these people to make their assault onto the bridge. Across all the muddy tiles over here. Perfect, we got one disruption. That'll set up nicely for next turn. And they have flak guns over here, which get a second attack on us. Alright, luckily we're not suffering too many casualties. Hopefully we can disrupt the guns, or at least do some damage to them, not bad. And the idea being that for these assaults, manpower counts a lot more than how many guns you have, but make no mistake, if you have a lot of guns supported by very good artillery or artillery and supporting fires, that nevertheless becomes quite difficult to deal with as well. And we'll take the engineers down to Eindhoven along with us. Right, so that sets up there, and that moves us back onto the main front. So again, go to the artillery phase, and we'll try to pummel everything that we can really see. Try to disrupt it. I'm gonna do a tally. I'm gonna check real fast whether or not some of these infantry units, because if your forces are within command range, they do have a chance to get back their cohesion. And right now, you know what, honestly, I don't think our artillery guns will do too much to scratch, say, for example, the tanks in the back. So I'm moving towards firing onto the enemy's side units. The reason being is that if you disrupt them, being less cohesive obviously makes moving bodies of infantry a lot more difficult. And with that said, I'm going to see whether or not I can pin down more of their forces in mass like that. Fire with all three units here, disrupt them, get the infantry to press forwards. And how it works with assaults is that you choose how many troop forces you commit to the assault, and then you press the resolve button, and then it kind of does that for you. So that is a comparison primarily in terms of manpower, and we'll try to move up the tanks. And again, your forces exert a zone of control. Enemy forces can't move around your troops very easily, or if at all, really. So with that said, if we try to keep our troops near them, it helps out on that front. So that gets things going over here. I'm going to see whether or not we can perhaps bring up these infantrymen, make the assault right away, because they're already disrupted, push them back, which is very, very good. Move these infantrymen forwards, try to scramble anything over here. And I'm going to keep the reconnaissance units nearby, again spotting on them. And these tanks inside these broken terrain, it's just terrible. Don't even try to move through there. You'll do 1 hex per turn at best. And over here, this is a difficult situation, but you know what? I'm going to move my troops through a minefield. The reason being is that early on, it maps a way through the minefields, and B, speed here is by far the most important thing. The reason being is that these disrupted troops, they still occupy zone of control, and I would prefer it if I were able to ship them out real fast. The reason being is, again, we need to get the drive onto these forces immediately. So you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to move again a lot of the troops just through here as best and as quickly as possible. Now with the tanks, I want to kind of shimmy them to the sides, move them back, drop out of movement mode, or travel mode, which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but it takes a portion, it takes 1/3 of your total movement points to do so. So again, move our troops forward, drop them over here, and we will just kind of continue that, and I'll move the HQ up, and I think we'll bring up 1 more squadron of tanks. And again, drop out of movement mode. Next turn, we will try to throw down some fire alongst the front over here, but that is, I think, as best as we can do for now. So we haven't used the Air Force as of yet. I will do so right now. And what I will do with these people is that I'm going to target the back of these forces over here next to the town, and we will do reconnaissance. And we'll see what we can find. It looks like the bombers decide to try to hit something over there, so not bad. Another reconnaissance troop over there. 1 in the town of Valkensvard over here. That was intercepted by enemies, so that's not good. We'll send another one. And it looks like we spotted some enemies over here. I see some bicycle infantry near Shaft, so we will send in another reconnaissance troop over here. And hey, would you look at that? So we're starting to peel back the enemy's defenders, and we're the kind of the fog of war over here with our reconnaissance troops. So we'll continue doing that, and we'll continue checking for whether or not we can make any more drives forwards. We're doing some more damage at Elst over here. Couldn't spot anything conclusive though. Okay, so along the front here, can our artillery join into the fray? No, so we'll have to depend upon the Air Force. Now, mind you, depending on how far the enemies are from our lines, our planes do different, varying amounts of damage. Really am not liking the amount of interceptions happening, but we will try to strike over here, especially against the anti-tank line. Over and around the front, we'll also try to put down some fires using Typhoons and Spitfires alongst the infantry line. And again, we have a 25 or 20% chance of regaining these air units per turn, so it's not bad. Perfect. 1 disruption. Can we go for another? Damn it. A lot of interception going on inside the air. Hopefully the bombing run over here will disrupt another group. Perfect. That clears up the road for now. Oh, and one thing, the closer your troops are to the commander, the less likely, or the more likely disruption will will recover, or where troops will start to recover from disruption like that. So we'll drop in the last heavy group of planes onto that unit. Doesn't look like it does too much, but you know what, that's that. And with one of the smaller wings, you know what, I'm just going to use them over here. The reason being is, again, I want to push these people back, disrupt them, and to kind of close down on them, not for the sake of dealing as much damage, but for the sake of pushing, or, you know, keeping them slow in terms of pulling back and retreating, and reforming, of course. I think that'll be all for this video. Next time we will, well, continue the drive forwards from the looks of it.